What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So, it's sticking into the back-to-back nature of these lists that I've been making, and having, talked about my favorite games from 2020. It's unfortunately time to look at the worst games of 2020, and basically just some real terrible fucking decisions and design of games and just general games that just fucking sucked that came out in 2020. The thing here is that this will only be a top 3 list, first of all, because as I've mentioned before, I generally don't pick up games that I suspect that I might not like just because I don't want to put that many hours in it. And then also, I have to be honest, like, I spend a hell of a lot of fucking time playing, like, these games as a service kind of games. So I'm putting a lot of time into Destiny 2, I'm putting a lot of time into Warzone and Plunder and all of that. So the times that I do have single player, I tend to, pick something that I kind of generally have a good idea that I like. But unfortunately, these 3 games that I mentioned today are games that I did spend money on, only to then realize after putting several hours into them that they were shit, or after just putting a few hours into them realizing that this is just a terrible thing and then seeking a refund. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and get it started. Number 3 for me would be Iron Harvest. Now, I'm a huge fan of Company of Heroes and Company of Heroes 2, more of Company of Heroes, the first one actually, but these kinds of games, this, sort of squad-based RTS kind of mechanic, was really up my alley, and I really enjoyed it. And Iron Harvest looked like a lot of the same, but with the added, sort of thing of there's this board game called Scythe that, has mechs and things like that as well, and it's with people, but also like these giant bipedal mechs and stuff like that. And this looked like a lot like that, and especially like the earlier trailers and cinematics and things like that, and even gameplay to a degree that we saw, this looked really promising, looked really good. And so this was like a no-brainer for me in a time when there aren't a lot of these kinds of strategy games around. I looked at that and I thought, like, my fuck, here's something that came out of the blue. It looks like a really interesting concept, and it just looks like a really fun time, and I can't wait to play it. Unfortunately, what we ended up getting though was something that wasn't exactly what was promised, but also, I mean, maybe to a degree it was also that I imagined it to be something different than what it ended up being, which is, I guess, as much my fault as it is that. But nonetheless, what I got was a game that I didn't enjoy playing, and that felt very mediocre and didn't feel fun. And just the story wasn't that great. The enemies felt very bullet spongy, very difficult. It just wasn't a good time. And honestly, I ended up not. I put in about maybe 12 hours into this game, and I was just I just walked away from it, feeling very disappointed and kind of thinking that it could have been so much more, and unfortunately it wasn't. So yeah, that's it. My number 2 is fucking Warcraft 3 Reforged, which is another RTS, which is of course a remake of Warcraft 3 and its expansion, and so it's not necessarily anything new. But again, it was one of these situations of in 2020 I replayed the entire StarCraft episode 1, 2 and 3, so StarCraft 2 episode 1, 2 and 3, the campaigns, because I was so fucking hungry for that kind of strategy experience again, that RTS experience, and so I was doing it while I was also waiting, of course, for Warcraft 3 Reforged. Now, the feeling I got was, all they had to do was just deliver on the things which they had promised in the run-up to the game's release. There were things like the remastered cutscenes and stuff like that, which, yeah, that's cool and everything, but what I mostly wanted was I just wanted the gameplay mechanics kind of updated to a degree, obviously the visuals updated to a degree, and that sort of thing. And unfortunately what we got was a broken piece of shit, which was, I had a couple of crashes with it. A lot of the fucking features that they said, was going to be in it ended up not making it. And it was priced like basically like a fucking new release, but I just felt like it was such a fucking slap in the face to do it in this way, and then also to have all these items that you said that would be in the game, and just to it be a flat out lie, and then be sort of said like, no, but it's because we didn't have time to put it in, and we originally planned for that to be there, but then we ended up cutting it out and that sort of thing. So yeah, not really fucking cool, man. Didn't enjoy it. Ended up fucking getting a refund off this as soon as I could, but yeah, it was fucking disappointing. I don't know, to be honest. I haven't come back to this and spent time looking at it again, trying to see if it's any better now or something. And honestly, I kind of feel like the trust, you fool me once, fool me twice kind of scenario. So I almost feel like, fuck you, you don't get my money now. But yeah, what a fucking disappointment. Would have been awesome. Would have really scratched that nostalgic itch. But yeah, that's my number 2 for worst game in 2020, Warcraft 3 Reforged. Now, number 1 for me is Marvel's Avengers. So, again, from the other lists and some of the comments that I've made and looking at all this fucking shit around me here, you can see that I'm a comic fan, I'm a Marvel fan, and so this game was like a fucking slam dunk for me if done right? This game was going to be like such an easy win when it came to someone like me, because I already like the fucking IP. All you have to do is just give me a little bit of fan service, give me a good story, give me good abilities, give me good controls, that sort of thing, and I'm fucking there. You got my money and I'm there to stay. In some cases this hit, and in some of the worst cases this missed terribly, and that's why it's my number 1, because it's such a big disappointment, because it's something that I care so much about. So firstly, the things that I liked is the story of the single player was good, and while playing it, I kept thinking to myself, like, wouldn't this game just have been better if they didn't do it as like a live service game? They didn't do it as like a multiplayer game. They just made the fucking single player, just made it like with a 15 to 20 hour story or something like that, and just that's it. You played it and you were done. But they just put all the effort into it, and they did that, and it certainly looked like that is what it started out as being, and then of course some fucking corporate chill or whatever came around and said, whoa, hold on, why get the people to pay for this fucking thing once when we can do a live service game and charge them for fucking DLC down the line and introduce more characters and just keep fucking milking it? Or at least that's how I imagined that it went. And so of course then the multiplayer component of this was born, and yeah, it's buggy. It again had crashes. It had servers not working. It had things that you unlocked and bought that would disappear from your inventory, and abilities that didn't work correctly, and fucking rewards that didn't reward correctly, and just the list goes on and on. And I still kept fucking plugging away at this. I finished the single player. I started leveling up my fucking characters to the max level that they could be in terms of item level and all of that. And, it's just this typical thing where the game is buggy and fucking, bug-ridden, but then players will find some kind of activity that they can do that increases the rewards slightly so that it feels a little bit more rewarding in terms of the items that you're getting back and how you're leveling up the character. And the designers will come in and nerf the shit out of that and just like fucking patch that out and go, no, you can't do that, because then you're just having, you're gaining levels far too efficiently, you're gaining gear far too efficiently, and you might just walk away. So we gotta make this harder on you, we gotta make this more difficult, because you gotta stick around and fucking potentially give us money down the line. And yeah, I think the opposite actually ended up happening, because people walked away from this game. They suffered several delays to the release path of additional characters and DLC and things that were supposed to be coming. And it's at a super low point. I think it's at its lowest. It was in November, December, of amount of concurrent players. And so there, of course, means that you're not finding any players to match up on these fucking team activities for, which inherently makes them impossible to do. So yeah, just a fucking failure all around. I don't know if they can turn this thing around and fix it. I don't know, my feeling is you get one shot at this, and then if you fuck it up, then people are kind of like very wary to trust you for it again, and they'll just like not fucking do that. So Yeah, terrible fucking decisions that were made there. I would have, like I said, I would have loved to play the shit out of this game for many hours. It could have become my new Destiny 2, since it is also a live service game. But yeah, comparing those two is like comparing day and night, where, you know, one game is just obviously refined to a fucking T, and while it has bugs and things like that, yeah, sure, these things get addressed. Whereas in Avengers, they just went like fucking quiet for 2.5 months, didn't say shit, you know, and just kept on nerfing, you know, everything that players found to do that was remotely fun or rewarding, which sucks fucking ass. So that's it. That's my top three list of games that sucked in 2020, the worst games. And I just wanted to mention two other things, and that's they couldn't be on this list because it wasn't specifically. In one case, it wasn't a game that came out in 2020, but a game that's been around for a while. And in the other case, it wasn't so much. The game itself, but rather something within the game. And those two things were, first of all, on the one side is Hearthstone, which is a game that I've been playing for many years and that I've thoroughly enjoyed, and has just really become this fucking like money machine now, where they've made some decisions now with how they don't reward players for playing the game as much anymore as they used to, first of all, and secondly, how they've just made the game essentially all about the whales. I have a friend who came back after not playing the game for 2.5 years and just said to me, it's fucking impossible for me to play now because it's a free game, right? Where you get rewards for playing just normally and doing quests and things. But you can't step into ranked mode without having spent real money in this game. And a lot of the quests expect you, for instance, to go into ranked mode to do things. And even if you don't go into ranked mode, then if you play wild, it's the same thing, right? It's the barrier of entry of this game is so fucking high now that it's impossible for returning players to come back to it. And so now you're just constantly looking for people to either just come in and dump a whole bunch of cash on it, or you're looking for guys that have hung around for long enough and that are just like, I've spent so much money on this game, I've spent so much time on this game, I just have to fucking stick around now, right? And both those are, those, I don't think they're sustainable. You're not bringing new people in or anything like that. So I don't know what's going to happen to Hearthstone, but I happily replaced my Hearthstone addiction with Legends of Runeterra this year. So yeah, that was one. And then number two, just quickly, Destiny 2 with its latest expansion that came out also had the very debated feature of sunsetting of items, weapons, and armor. And this has been a really unpopular decision, and I have to just mirror this statement by saying that it just makes no sense to me. I fucking hate it. And all that it's made me realize is that once I started playing the new expansion and I realized which guns I can't use, which armor I can't use, the guns to a degree, I was like, okay, cool, so this is going to force me to use other loadouts and things like that. And I get it to a degree, and usually I thought that I could find something that's somehow like a replacement or something that's just as good, which ended up being the case in some cases, but in some cases not. Like generally, I feel weaker as a character in terms of like the guns that I have available to me and what those guns can do, and which mods and variants of those guns I have right now. But then the realization that the sunsetting of armor was also a thing, which would then essentially mean that you could farm out perfect armor with the right stat distribution and all of that you wanted, and then you realize that that's only good for a year, and then the next year around about the same time you have to re-farm armor with those perfect fucking stats, which was fucking impossible to get. It took me a year and a half to get my warlock correct in terms of that by playing fucking 6 hours a day, and to then just realize that in a year's time that's all fucking moot and doesn't count was demoralizing, to say the least. So I don't play Destiny 2 as much as I used to anymore. I still do though, but not nearly as much. I don't put in the hours because I just realized that it kind of feels like a game that doesn't respect the time that I put into it. And that's a terrible fucking design, in my opinion. But in any case, just those two additional items that I wanted to mention. But there's my list of, worst games for 2020 and, let's say, biggest disappointments in gaming for 2020. go ahead and comment. Tell me if you agree with my list, if there's some ones you would like to add to the list. How do you feel about what I said about Hearthstone and about Destiny 2? And other than that, thanks for the support. Thanks for coming by. Thanks for having a watch. Thanks for liking, subscribing, and commenting. And have a great morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. Until next time, cheers.